Welcome back to the next installment of Major Coaster Manufacturers Explained, where I broadly cover major roller coaster manufacturers, their types of rides that they make, their popular models, and how to identify their track. Let's jump right in. Schwartzkoph is a defunct coaster manufacturer out of this city that I cannot pronounce in Germany. They began making coasters as early as 1965 and was one of the major players along with Aerodynamics in the steel coaster market in the early days. The company went bankrupt back in 1983 but would bring life to other major players and companies in the industry in the future. Werner Stengel got his start with the Schwartzkopf company and later went on to become one of the most prestigious designers of roller coasters and amusement rides in the world. Hubert Gerstlauer also got his start at Schwartzkopf before starting his own company, Gerstlauer, in 1952. Schwarzkopf's most famous models were their flywheel shuttle loops like Montezuma's Revenge at Knott's Berry Farm, their Jetstar models like the Whizzer at Six Flags Great America, and their iconic loopers like Shockwave at Six Flags Over Texas. The iconic Schwarzkopf loop is almost completely circular, delivering strong sustained G-forces, which can cause a grayout, and is really awesome in my opinion. Their track looks like this, and you can usually tell it's a Schwarzkopf just by looking at the age or by the trains and how old the ride is. Schwarzkopf helped pioneer modern roller coasters back in the day, keeping up with Aero by producing flywheel launch coasters, loops, and many successful models. Their capacity is above average, but their reliability doesn't hold up too well today simply because most of the rides are so old, so they need regular maintenance and refurbishment in order to still be operating today. Most Schwarzkopfs, unlike Aeros, are fairly smooth, and by modern standards, they were fairly inexpensive depending on the model, of course. Now on to the Dinn Corporation. Dinn Corporation is a defunct coaster designer that made their first roller coaster in Wolverine Wildcat at Michigan's Adventure back in 1988. Their final coaster was built just 3 years later, with Main Streak at Cedar Point in 1991. Technically, Charles Dinn's first roller coaster was the Beast at Kings Island in 1979, as he was the lead engineer on the project when he worked at Kings Island at the time, but it's still technically Wolverine Wildcat. He went on to form the Dinn Corporation, building massive, huge woodies that would be known to be some of the roughest rides in the industry, and prime RMC candidates today. 3 of Dinn's woodies have already been RMC'd, including Main Streak, Georgia Cyclone, and Texas Giant, and only 4 of the 10 Dinn woodies are still operating today. They made woodies that were huge in stature, but were somewhat boring with little airtime and extremely rough. Most of them were thrilling when they opened, but do not hold up today. Some of them you may know are listed on screen. The track looks like traditional woodies, but usually lack airtime, intensity, and enjoyment for the most part. Dinn was not too innovative compared to other manufacturers because they really weren't around for long enough to be so. Capacity and reliability seemed to be pretty good for a lot of them because they had a lot of people on each train. As I said earlier, Dinns are some of the roughest coasters you will ride, and there's a reason that a lot of them no longer exist. The price of their rides was reasonable at the time. On to a personal favorite of mine, RMC, or Rocky Mountain Construction. One of the newest manufacturers on the scene is an American manufacturer based out of Idaho. They were previously known for manufacturing and installing many roller coasters for Intamin, such as El Toro at Six Flags Great America, but they made their revolutionary entry into the industry with the introduction of their steel iBox track. RMC's first roller coaster and the first park to give them a shot was the new Texas Giant at Six Flags Over Texas in 2011, and from the beginning it was a massive success. RMC would essentially reuse the wood structures and footers from old wooden roller coasters and put their steel iBox track on top of it, creating an entirely new layout and experience. The steel track would allow them to do things that wooden coasters could never even dream of, and would take an old, rough, unpopular ride and transform it into the most popular ride and one of the best coasters in the world for the park, for a reasonable price. Because RMC used steel track on a wood coaster, the rides would be considered hybrids. These hybrid coasters dominated the market during the 2010s and continue to today. RMC hybrids include Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point, Iron Gwazi at Busch Gardens Tampa, Twisted Colossus at Six Flags Magic Mountain, and a plethora of others listed on screen. With their iBox creation, they would also develop some wooden coasters with inversions like Outlaw Run at Silver Dollar City, Goliath at Six Flags Great America, Wildfire at Colmartin, and Lightning Rod at Dollywood, but have since discontinued the topper track woodies, for purposes I'll highlight in a separate video. Outside of their wooden coaster conversions, RMC realized that they would one day run out of bad wooden roller coasters to fix. So they began making ground-up coasters, and they unveiled their Raptor model. This using a single I-beam rail and single-file trains. These coasters are small but pack a huge punch and intense experience in a short ride. A few of these have been built so far, including Wonder Woman at Six Flags Magic Mountain, Trailblazer at California's Great America, Stunt Pilot at Silverwood, and a couple others. They also unveiled their T-Rex model, which is a scaled-up version of their single rail, but with 2-row seating, but none of these have been built yet. Their track is easily identifiable with their iconic iBox track, wooden coaster conversions, and lift hill structures. There is a good reason why every park wanted one of these for themselves. These coasters are regarded to as some of the best, smoothest, and most intense rides in the world, a true coaster enthusiast's dream. While they stick to their formula, it works, and their coasters have some of the most innovative and creative elements on any modern roller coasters today. Their capacities and reliabilities are very hit or miss sometimes. The heavy lap bars and intense airtime offered makes it take longer for ride-ups to dispatch trains, and people often lose their belongings on these rides. So much so that ones that Cedar Fair offers, you have to go through metal detectors just to get on the ride and put your items in a locker. The wooden RMCs can be a bit rougher, but their hybrids are glossy smooth despite the high intensity. The best part of RMC is that their quality and intensity of the rides they provide come at such an extremely low price. This is due to them often reusing the structure, footers, and by outsourcing as little as possible. Moving on, we have S&S. S&S is an American manufacturer out of Logan, Utah, owned by Sansei Technologies, and they're extremely interesting. S&S initially specialized by making air-powered flat rides such as Power Towers, the S&S Scream and Swing, and more. But they theorized back in the early 2000s that they could take their air launch, what they use on drop towers, and turn it on its side and use it for roller coasters. With this, the first roller coaster that they built was Hypersonic XLC at King's Dominion in 2001. The ride had an insane acceleration, but was ultimately a failure of a prototype. And it was a learning experience for the company. Since then, they developed a ride with the world's fastest acceleration, from 0 to 111.8 miles per hour in just 1.5 seconds. This ride is called Dododompa at Fuji-Q Highland in Japan. Similar rides to this are Max Force at Six Flags Great America, having the fastest acceleration of any roller coaster in North America, and other S&S coasters include Steel Curtain at Kennywood, Powder Keg at Silver Dollar City, and Edge Anika at Fuji-Q Highland. It's also worth noting that S&S obtained all of Aerodynamics' old assets after they went bankrupt. This helps them produce some of their other models that I'm about to highlight. Their most popular model by far is the 40 Freespin. Almost every Six Flags park has one of these, and it gets kind of tiring riding them over and over. I'll put them on screen, all of the parks that these are at. These 40 Freespins rotate on their axis and flip riders upside down, usually multiple times each ride, but are completely random, so sometimes you might not flip at all, other times you might get 4 flips. Recently, they have used the assets gained from Aerodynamics and used this flipping car gimmick from the 40 coaster and developed a model with the axis behind the riders, naming it the Axis Coaster accordingly. No Axis coasters have been built yet, but it looks like an awesome design and would be really cool to see this built soon. Their track has various designs, but it'll most likely either be a 40 Freespin and look like that kind of track, or a triangular truss track like you see on Max Force or Steel Curtain. S&S is probably the most innovative manufacturer in the industry right now. They just need the fish to take a bite of what they are casting, especially with the S&S Axis coaster. Most S&S coasters do not have great capacity, and unfortunately, due to the nature of a lot of their prototypes, most S&S coasters are plagued with downtime, except for the 40 Freespins, of course. The rides are pretty smooth, but often disorienting. Price varies a lot depending on the model, like 40 Freespins are cheap, but some of their other custom models are very expensive. Ultimately, they're relatively inexpensive compared to what other manufacturers offer for the same price. And the last manufacturer I'll highlight today is Gerstlauer. Gerstlauer is a manufacturer located out of this same city as I mentioned earlier in Germany that I can't pronounce, and they began making coasters in 1998 with this ride that I also can't pronounce. They specialize in compact inversion-based rides with launches, vertical lift hills, and beyond vertical drops. Very cool stuff, and very unique in the industry. The most popular model that they have is the Eurofighter and their Infinity Coaster. Both of them are inversion-based with very compact layouts. Some of these include TMNT Shellraiser at Nickelodeon Universe, Hang Time at Knott's Berry Farm, Monster at Adventureland, and various others you see on screen. Another model they are well known for is their Family Spinning Coaster. These are fun, moderate throw rides that always give a different ride experience based on the spinning. Countless clones of this model exist. Their track closely resembles Intamin's with the truss-like connections between a triangular frame. You can usually distinguish them apart because Gerstlauer's are compact. You have short passenger trains with often vertical lift hills and beyond vertical drops. Although the one exception to this is Fahrenheit at Hershey Park. It looks like a Gerstlauer, but it's actually an Intamin. For Gerstlauer, they're not super innovative, they stick mainly to their bread and butter, but they do it extremely well. Due to a small number of seats per train on most of these, the capacities aren't too great. Gerstlauer rides do seem to be very reliable though. It can be a hit or miss whether a Gerstlauer is rough or not. The older ones I hear they're pretty rough, but the newer ones aren't too bad. In general, Gerstlauers are very cost and space effective. That is all for this coaster manufacturer's crash course episode. I have at least one more part of this releasing soon, so stay tuned. The link to RCDB, the largest roller coaster database, can be found in the description to help you out. Be sure to check out other episodes of this series if you haven't yet. And I also have a separate series coming out on all of these roller coaster manufacturers in depth. The one on Gravity Group should be out right now, and I'm very happy with how it turned out, so make sure to check it out. If you've enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing. It doesn't cost you anything, and you can always change your mind if you want. I will have plenty of great coaster content coming out in the future, 2 videos a week to be specific, so make sure to subscribe. Have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you guys in the next one.